Other people's things are not your own. Such a concept is obviously flawed. It's a simple idea, but for those too foolish to understand, perhaps the only option is to step aside. My name is Mary. I'm outgoing and never shy away from meeting new people. I consider myself active and decisive. In other words, I'm fearless and sometimes act impulsively, which carries the risk of failure or loss. Fortunately, I've never experienced a major failure. On the contrary, this boldness has led me to new encounters and special experiences, often resulting in positive outcomes. When I was young, there was a large cherry tree in my family's yard that bloomed beautifully every year. In September of my first year in elementary school, the cherry tree, having bloomed in spring, now shed its colorful leaves. While I was cleaning up the leaves as instructed by my mom, a girl about my age approached and said, "That's a lot of leaves, can I have some?" I quickly responded, "Sure, but in exchange, let's be friends." That was the start of a great friendship. Her name was Linda, a first grader like me, but in the class next door. From then on, through every class change in high school, Linda and I remained close, even attending the same middle school, high school, and eventually the same college. In middle school, I joined a cooking club called Cooking Act. Linda was surprised I didn't choose a sports club, but at that time, cooking was my trend, inspired by a TV show. I found I quite enjoyed it. Every year, there was a cooking contest involving 4 school districts in the area, a competition of culinary ideas and skills, always a highly anticipated event. In this contest, I met a girl from a neighboring district in the same grade. The contest had 2 parts, a presentation of ideas and a technical segment where the dishes were actually prepared. I was drawn to a girl passionately presenting her idea. I instinctively knew she would become my rival. I took a moment to talk to her. There was no hesitation or shyness despite it being our first meeting. She seemed surprised at first, but we quickly bonded over our similar views on cooking and being in the same grade. That girl, Elizabeth, and I would compete in the contest every year after that. Sometimes I lost, sometimes I won. And in our final year as juniors, we both tied for first place, leaving the judges in a dilemma. Elizabeth and I formed a good relationship that continued over the years. We ended up attending different high schools, but surprisingly enrolled in the same college. In high school, I joined the volleyball team. Linda commented, "That's so you, Mary," seeming satisfied. But am I really that energetic? That year, 20 new members joined the team, and I hit it off with Barbara from the next class. Barbara came from a single-parent household. Her mom had assets, though they weren't struggling financially. But she still felt a bit out of place, as there were no other children from single-parent homes around. However, I never cared about that and couldn't even understand why it would be an issue. I actively reached out to Barbara, and we quickly became close friends, devoting our high school years to volleyball. When we narrowly missed qualifying for a league match, we both cried our eyes out and binged on snacks at my house. Linda joined us, empathizing as if it were her own disappointment. Barbara and I were so touched that the 3 of us ended up crying again, hugging each other. That high school life was truly the epitome of my youth. After graduation, Barbara decided to attend the same college as me. During our college years, Linda, Elizabeth, Barbara, and I decided to participate in volunteer activities. We chose an organization that supported elderly care, helping solitary seniors and those in need of assistance. Elderly care was highlighted as a social issue, but mere attention wouldn't bring change. We wanted to contribute even in a small way to improve the situation. We met Susan, the head of the volunteer organization. Susan was a sincere, straightforward, and intellectual woman deeply committed to addressing this issue. I approached Susan, eager to learn from her. Susan, seeing my fearless nature, took a liking to me, and a relationship was formed. My 3 friends and I learned under Susan's guidance, gaining valuable experience. This made my college life fulfilling. Of course, I also focused on my studies, and my thesis won the Dean's Award. In the latter half of my college years, I began job hunting and secured an offer from a well-known trading company. I believe my fearless personality shone through in the interviews, and my volunteer experience was a strong selling point. I received various advice from Susan, the head of the volunteer organization, which helped me face the interviews confidently. As we graduated from college, my group of 4 best friends each embarked on our paths, but we all shared the lifelong bond of friendship. Although my new job made volunteering difficult, Susan assured me that our meeting was a lifelong treasure. My career started with great momentum. I was assigned to the first sales division, a prestigious department known for generating the highest sales profits among the 4 divisions. I was proactive in my approach, never hesitating even with new acquaintances, much to the slight annoyance of my seniors and supervisors. They taught me various sales techniques, and I managed to secure trust and close contracts with my natural flair. My sales performance skyrocketed, surprising even my boss. Achieving such results in just over a year was unprecedented. I wasn't doing anything special, but it seemed my personality and approach were perfectly suited for sales. Years went by, and I continued to break sales records. Turning 28 that year, I became the youngest department head. I had set records as the youngest in various positions, but being a department head came with unparalleled responsibility. It was a sobering realization. My best friends organized a celebration dinner for my recent promotion. It had been a while since I last saw Linda, Elizabeth, and Barbara, but they all looked well. Susan was also invited but couldn't attend due to a volunteer organization meeting, though she sent a message of congratulations, expressing her regret for missing the celebration while praising my effort. The 3 playfully teased me about my love life, asking, "Aren't you going to find someone special despite your career success?" I joked back, "What about you 3?" But being outnumbered, I was at a disadvantage. The reunion was lively, and as we were leaving the restaurant, I accidentally bumped into a man. I was rushing in. He apologized and helped me up, and as I stood up with his assistance, he looked closely at my face and hesitantly asked, "Are you married by any chance?" Surprised, he recognized my friends and called out their names. The man was William, a classmate from the same university. Although we were all from the same university, my friends and I were in different departments, but we always hung out together. William and I were in the same department and had several classes together during our general education courses, so we were closer than with other male students. Through me, William had become acquainted with the other 3. We were all truly surprised to meet William in such a place. After a brief catch-up, William excused himself as he was keeping someone waiting inside the restaurant. Before leaving, he expressed the wish to talk more and we exchanged contact information. A week later, William reached out. He suggested, since we couldn't talk much last time, how about we have a meal and chat? I proposed inviting the other 3, but he said, "This time I'd like to talk with you, Mary." Without much thought, I agreed to meet William. I had always enjoyed his company during our college days, so I was looking forward to seeing him again. The restaurant he chose was stylish and renowned for its delicious food, with a sophisticated atmosphere and exquisite cuisine. We enjoyed reminiscing about our college days and discussing our lives since graduation, and time flew by quickly. Just as I was about to leave, William stopped me and unexpectedly asked me out. He confessed that he had always been interested in me, and after reuniting and talking again, he realized he couldn't wait for another opportunity. I had a good impression of William, and his proactive approach matched well with my personality, so I accepted his proposal. William worked for a manufacturer handling women's accessories, holding a senior position in the new product development department. I hadn't been very interested in personal accessories, so the knowledge he shared was refreshing and stimulating. Despite our busy schedules, William and I made time for each other and continued dating. A year later, William decided to propose, saying he was ready to take a big gamble. When I laughed at his exaggeration, he said, "I was desperate because if you declined, my life would turn dull and bleak." His words touched my heart deeply, and thus our marriage was decided. My 3 best friends and Susan threw a grand celebration party for us, where I was relentlessly teased and ended up quite inebriated after being urged to drink. Thankfully, the next day was a day off from work. We decided to start our married life in my current condominium. When I was promoted to assistant manager 2 years ago, I moved to a slightly larger 2-bedroom apartment ideal for living alone. I chose this place due to its proximity to my company, but coincidentally, it was also close to William's workplace. Considering the convenience for commuting and the adequate space for both of us, we agreed to begin our married life in this condominium. Another coincidence was that it wasn't far from William's family home. His father, Joseph, had passed away a few years earlier, and William had lived with his mother, Jessica, until our marriage. After becoming a widow, Jessica often visited our new home. Jessica and I shared a fearless character, but unlike me, who adapts my approach based on the situation and others' feelings, Jessica expressed her thoughts and opinions straightforwardly, without much regard for her surroundings. Though sometimes challenging, my relationship with Jessica, who was quite similar to me, wasn't bad. William seemed happy about it too. He apologized for Jessica's frequent visits, accepting them without reprimanding her. It seemed his affection for Jessica had grown, especially after his father's death. I could sense his deep feelings for her in his words. While I believed it's good to cherish one's parents, I couldn't help but worry if he might prioritize his mother over his wife. Jessica didn't seem to mind that I continued working after marriage, probably because William had told her about my significant position and high income. My income is nearly double William's due to the difference in our positions and the scale of our companies. However, William didn't seem to mind this at all. Many men might feel their pride wounded if their wives earn more, but William was different, even appearing pleased about it. However, the reason for his happiness, whether it's pride in his wife's success or simply being pleased about the high income, changes the context subtly. I sincerely hoped it was the former. A year into our marriage, Jessica's visits continued as usual. William suggested she probably comes so often because she's lonely, even hinting at the idea of living with her every time. I firmly told him I'm not interested, but William doesn't hide his dissatisfaction. I had never considered living with Jessica, especially given her recent behavior and words. It was simply unacceptable. First came the incessant prodding about grandchildren since about 6 months into our marriage. The phrase, "no grandchildren yet," has become increasingly frequent. Although William and I had agreed to wait a bit longer for children, Jessica persisted with her grandchild calls every time she visited. Just enduring her presence was hard enough, let alone living with her. Moreover, she began asking for financial assistance, claiming her pension wasn't enough or she needed money for things she wanted to buy or to help with renovations at her home. I suspect this started after I paid for a meal when the three of us went out, which William jokingly praised as befitting a high-income earner. Jessica's eyes seemed to light up when she heard this, or was it just my imagination? Her financial requests became increasingly extravagant. I initially agreed not wanting to worsen our relationship, but this only made things worse. Usually, I would have firmly refused such demand, but considerations for Jessica, my relationship with William, and his feelings restrained me. Jessica, on the other hand, made her demands without any such considerations. When I consulted William, he was of no help, suggesting that I, earning for Mom, could afford to give a little. Lately, William had been using his salary solely for himself, while our living expenses came from my income. After repeatedly confronting William about the living expenses and Jessica's demands, he began avoiding me, coming home late and going out on his own during weekends. I felt completely isolated. One evening, while William and I were spending a quiet night at home, Jessica suddenly visited. It wasn't unusual for her to come unannounced, but she had never come at such a late hour before. William, as if expecting her, immediately welcomed her inside. It seemed he knew about her visit. William and Jessica sat down in front of me, and William began speaking. "We've talked about this before, but Mom is lonely living alone. I'm worried about her, so I've decided that the three of us should live together." I was about to object, as I had many times before, when Jessica interjected. "For that, we need a bigger house, so we've decided to build a new one on this land. We'll start demolishing the current house next week and then build a new one. And until the new house is ready, Mom will stay with us." I was shocked at such sudden news and couldn't simply agree. "You can build a house if you like, but I refuse to live with her, even temporarily. Please rent another place for her. It's not just your decision, Mary, it involves you too, Jessica added. After all, you will be paying for the new house's loan with your high income. It should be easy for you. I was dumbfounded by Jessica's absurd claim. Why should I pay for such a loan? As I wondered about her lack of common sense, William said, "That's right. With Mary's salary, it'll be easy. Please do it for Mom." I realized there was another person lacking common sense. I raised my voice. "That's absurd. I absolutely refuse." They accused me of being cold and stingy. William even went as far as to say, "If you don't agree, I don't need you. Let's get divorced," and thrust out a filled-out divorce application at me. "Since you earn but you don't support us if you don't like it, it's divorce. Or you okay with that?" he threatened. They left, telling me to cool off and think it over. William stayed at his mother's house that night. I was determined not to accept their demands, but I didn't know what to do. I couldn't find a way to make William and Jessica see reason. The next week, Jessica moved into our house as the demolition of her old house began. William greeted her with a big smile, pleased with the progress of their plan. Then, hearing Jessica demanding, "The first loan payment is due soon, so transfer the money quickly," made me realize they were serious. I couldn't let things continue this way, being manipulated by the two of them. I turned to my 3 best friends for support, the only ones I could rely on. They were outraged upon hearing my story. They expressed disgust at William being a mama's boy lacking common sense. Linda reached out that day to join us, and even Susan shook her head and sighed in disbelief. They all promised to support my decision, which was to sever ties with those two. I arranged with the condominium management company to immediately terminate the lease and issue eviction notices to William and Jessica. I submitted the divorce papers William had given me to the authorities, dissolving my marriage with him. I had already been suspecting William's behavior and had hired a detective agency to investigate. They found that William was involved in a suspicious relationship with a junior at his company. I sent William a notice of divorce and a demand for compensation due to his infidelity. Elizabeth, who had studied law in college and was now a practicing lawyer, advised and helped me with these matters. After canceling my condominium lease and losing my place to live, Barbara helped me find temporary housing. She serves as the vice president of a real estate company. She married the company's president, but it was her excellence in sales, consistently topping performance charts, that caught the eye of the former president, now the chairman, and led to her marriage with his son, the current president. This also resulted in her appointment as vice president. With a stable place to live, I decided to fight relentlessly against William and Jessica, who kept demanding loan payments and complaining about the divorce. They moved into a cheap apartment after being evicted and soon faced financial strain, missing several loan payments and foolishly suing me. Elizabeth, representing me, decisively defeated their absurd lawsuit. Burdened with compensation for the divorce and lawsuit expenses and continuing to default on the loan, they were in a desperate situation. But our retaliation didn't stop there. The final strike was delivered by Linda. After graduation, she blossomed her talent in designing women's accessories, a hobby of hers. She is now a well-known designer recognized by those in the know. William's company, which dealt with women's accessories, had a contract with Linda and a deep relationship. Linda shared the details of William and Jessica's misconduct with the company's president, who was closely associated with her. The president and executive director, whose daughter was William's affair partner, were very close, and William's actions greatly angered them. He was sidelined at work and eventually resigned due to unbearable isolation. Now jobless, William faced the consequences of his actions. Time passed, and a lot happened over this year. William and Jessica repeatedly defaulted on their loan, leading to a foreclosure by the loan company. They never lived in the new house they had built and ended up losing it, with debt remaining as the sale didn't cover everything. The unemployed pair, burdened with debt, faced a bleak future, but I didn't want to imagine just how miserable it was. According to Susan from the volunteer organization, an elderly woman recently sought help, almost penniless, and it seemed to be Jessica. William, jobless and drowning in debt, apparently abandoned Jessica and fled. Susan remarked, "We'll extend help as it's our duty, but I doubt she'll ever escape her dire situation." Thanks to Barbara, I signed a lease for a permanent residence and threw myself into my work, making up for the recent distractions. My efforts paid off, and there's talk among the company's upper management of possibly promoting me to department head, which would set another record for youngest appointee. Though it's not confirmed yet, more than anything, I'm happy to work without any hindrances. I cannot thank Linda, Elizabeth, and Barbara enough. Susan also supported me emotionally. Having such dear friends and mentors is the greatest